Hello and welcome to your first video on your own. So remember to get fit while you're watching this. So that's focused, involved, and take away distractions. So if you've got anything else distracting you, make sure to put that away and let's do it. This is going to be a pretty short first video. So we're going to talk about function notation. So function notation is going to be basically another way to represent functions. So when we write them, a lot of times we recognize something like this, but it can also be written as f of x, which is just kind of your total. So some function with a variable x equals 5x minus 1. So we write this because a lot of times we're plugging in variables for x into these different things. And we want to represent these different functions with different notation to show that they're different. So basically, if we wanted to find y, we would plug x equal to -3. That's before. So we would have 5 times -3 minus 1, and then we'd simplify. So -15 minus 1 equals -16, and that's what y equals. Now, it's basically the same thing. When it says f of -3, that means we're replacing the x's with -3, any and all x's. In this case, we only have one. And then we simplify. And we get f of 3 equals -16. So a lot of times we're talking about ordered pairs, x's and y's, or a lot of different things to plug in for x. So let's take a look at some more of this notation. We could have f of x, we could have g of x, we could have h of x, a lot of those meaning different values. So you can use any letter except for whatever variable that's being used in your kind of equation there. So same as y equals. This is the same as y equals, all of these. So let's go ahead and write it in 3 different ways. So I'm going to write it in 2, and you can go ahead and write it the last way, however way you want to. So for the first one, I'm going to use f of x equals 2x squared minus 5x plus 3. And then another way to write it would be g of x. 2x squared minus 5x plus 3. Go ahead and try and writing one on your own. Again, any letter can be used except for the letter that you are having in your equation, which is x. So you can't have x of x. So go ahead and pick a letter and write out an equivalent function. All right, and you could have picked h of x or s of x, any letter there. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look now at how to evaluate. So evaluating, remember, means plugging in, and we've kind of talked about that before, and we kind of did a little bit of it on that first page. So we're going to replace, again, this f, and then it's got parentheses. All that's meaning is telling you what you're going to substitute or replace for the variable. So if it's f of x, that means, and then we say f of 3, that means that the x is being replaced with a 3. So we're going to just go ahead and write that, replacing each x with a 3. So we have f of 3 equaling 2 times 3 minus 5. So to simplify the expression, we're just simplifying this right-hand side here, because we already have our f of 3 equaling, and then whatever it is that we simplify. So simplifying 2 times 3, well, that's 6. Then we have 6 minus 5, and that's 1. So f of 3 equals 1. So it's basically just kind of plugging in and simplifying. And it's kind of a weird way to see it, but that's all that it is. Let's take a look at another one. So this one, here's our function. We are replacing the x with a 4. So 25 times 4 plus 8. And then we've got 100 plus 8. Well, using proper notation, that means that we need to put f of, and whatever f is being, that function's being replaced with, there we go, equals, and 100 plus 8 is 108. So that's proper notation. F of 4 equals 108. So go ahead and try these next two on your own. Pause now and check when you're ready. All right, and hopefully you got f of 0 equaling 8 and f of -3 equaling -67. If not, take a look at my work there and see maybe where you made your mistake. All right, so in this next section, it's the same thing that we did before, only we kind of have it more in a table format. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger here. And it may say evaluate the function for f of 0, f of -2, f of 3 of x. So we're just plugging, again, these numbers in for the variable and simplifying. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of these. I'm going to do this column and this one, and then you're going to go ahead and do this one on your own. So it's going to be 0 squared plus 9, and then we get 9 for our solution. Basically, this is what it equals once we simplify it. So next is going to be -2 squared plus 9. -2 times -2 is +4, plus 9 is 13. And then 3x. So 3x, we're going to square it. So we actually have to take 3x times 3x, which is going to give us 9x squared. So this is 9x squared, and then plus 9. Should have written it over there. So go ahead and try this one on your own. Be careful, because you're going to have to replace it for this x and this x, and then simplify using those order of operations. So go ahead and try this, and then check when you're ready. All right, so let's go ahead and check your answers. For that first one, plugging in 0, you should have gotten 2. For the second one, plugging in -2, be careful when you do -2 squared, it should be +4 times 3 is 12. And then we have this double negative. So 12 plus 2 is 14, plus 2 is 16. Then we have a 3x that we're replacing our x's with. So 3x, we need to square that first. That's 9x squared, just like we did it over here. And then multiply it by 3. So that's 27x squared. Now, can we add an x squared and an x? No. So that's why we have it written in this format, and we're done. We're as simplified as we can get. Let's take a look at how would we evaluate from a graph. So basically, this is like my x's and this is like my y's. All these different points we could put in an xy table, right? So basically, we're just identifying what the ordered pair is, the x and the y. So they're telling you x is 0, so we go to the x-axis at 0 and we find our line. And this is the point they're talking about. So if it's 0, what's the y value at this point? You're 1 less than 4, so that would have to be 3. So what about 1/2? That's my x value. So what's the y value? So let's go to the x-axis, go to 1/2, and find your line. And this is the point that they're talking about right here. So this is 1/2 for an x value. What's its y value? How high up is it? 4. -2. So what's its x value? -2. Go to the line. And what's its y? So how high up are we? We're at 2. Go ahead and try it on your own with this one. Again, these are your x's. Go to that x value, go up to your line, put a dot, and figure out what's the real coordinate. What's the y value that you're at? So go ahead and pause now and try B on your own, all 3 of those function values. Check when you're ready. How'd you do? All right, so you can do the same thing if you didn't have a graph, if you had a table. It'd be really easy. So if I said, what was f of -1? Well, you just go to your chart and you would look at the x column. And that is -1, so your solution is 0. That's the output. It's basically telling you what's the input. So f of, what's f of 2? Go to your chart. This is your input. What's going to be the output? If you input 2, the output's going to be 3. So it's much easier even so with a chart. Last question is going to be kind of this word problem. we're going to write an equation for it. So a function to represent the total cost after taking a certain number of rides. So if this is the total, we start off with a $5 entrance fee and $2 per ride. Now when it's per, that's a rate. That means it's going to go with the variable. So let's go ahead and use N for number of rides. So 2 is going to be with the N because it's $2 per every ride. So 2 times the number of rides. But don't forget that entrance fee. We need to add that in there because that's going to be part of our total cost too. So now go ahead and input 12 for the number of rides. How much is it going to cost? Pause now and try it. Woo! It's going to cost you 29 bucks to go on 12 rides. So you better save those pennies. All right, you're done, except for the fact that you need to summarize and come up with a question. So which area seems a little bit confusing to you still? Go ahead and write a question, or maybe just a specific area that you still need some help with. And I'll see you on Monday.